Hello, this is Brian Rowe with Mythic MTG Tech, here with a quick video going over what has recently happened in Modern, which is the banning of Bloodbraid Elf. As most of you know, this Monday, Bloodbraid Elf and Seething Song were both banned by Wizards of the Coast in the Modern format. I'm not going to talk a lot about Seething Song, except that Wizards did the absolute right thing in banning it now. Storm is way too powerful, and without Bloodbraid Elf around, Storm would have easily became the most dominant deck out there. It makes it way too easy for Storm to kill on turn 3, although don't count Storm out as it is, Goblin Electromancer is still pretty amazing, and there are some ways to get 3rd and 4th turn solid kills out of Storm, even without Seething Song. Now, let's look at Bloodbraid Elf here a little bit more closely. Why did they choose to ban Bloodbraid Elf? There were so many other choices out there. Deathrite Shaman, Liliana the Veiled, Dark Confidant, Tarmogoyf, Thoughtseize. Not to mention that many of these would have been a nightmare for individuals' collections. I mean, they just announced Modern Masters. Tarmogoyf is still going up at this point. If they had banned Tarmogoyf, it would have put a damper on their new Modern Masters set. But Tarmogoyf actually isn't that powerful compared to Bloodbraid Elf. Bloodbraid Elf really does a lot of different things in that it amplifies all of these other great cards, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in detail when we look at what to replace it with. Deathrite Shaman was also a possible category of card that individuals really wanted to see banned, but Deathrite Shaman is used in so many other decks as an enabler and also a way to keep graveyard strategies in check that I think they did the right thing in going after Bloodbraid Elf, since Bloodbraid Elf was the only one of the big cards in Jund that's only really played in Jund. These 5 cards, though, are still around for Jund, and the main power of the deck is still in place. So in looking at why to remove Bloodbraid Elf, there's a few different things that Wizards is doing specifically. Number one is they're really enabling a control strategy to come forward. There's a lot of combo decks in the environment right now, and Bloodbraid Elf crushes control. And by pulling Bloodbraid Elf from the environment, it makes longer term control decks more powerful. The other thing is Bloodbraid Elf really magnifies the strategy of whatever else is in your deck, and it itself doesn't really make a particular choice or direction for where your deck is going. It also makes your sideboard cards much more powerful as you can cascade into them later. By pulling it, it does weaken some of the power of your cascade targets in the deck, so your sideboard cards become less valuable after Bloodbraid Elf has been pulled from the deck. As a Jund player, there's 2 things that individuals are thinking about. Number one is, if I stick with Jund, what am I going to do to try to fix Jund? How am I going to replace the Bloodbraid Elf? One option is to look for some easy 2-for-1 targets. Huntmaster of the Fell comes up pretty easily, since he at least produces 2 creatures, gains you some life, and has the option of possibly producing many more. In mirror matches, this is actually a pretty strong card, and it's a nice way to deal with control, and they have to deal with him right away when he hits the board. Otherwise, he can do a lot of damage. Lingering Souls is another great one, both because it has that 2-for-1 value to deal with your control matchups, but it also works really well against the more aggro-based decks. But I think the more popular strategy will be to figure out a way to go over the top. We've already seen several of the decks put in Thundermaw Hellkite, although I think the 5 casting cost may be a little bit high. I like Falkenrath Aristocrat because it has flying and it has haste, so it can go over the top and it can do a lot of damage, especially if Lingering Souls falls out of favor. Another option, though, is Olivia Voldaren, who is very powerful in the mirror match and just dominates many different types of fair decks. Outer Skull is another option for dealing explicitly with control decks and aggro decks, because it has a nice reusable threat there. Some people have also tried to go faster with Lotus Cobra. This is not my preferred method, but it definitely can give you a leg up in a mirror match. I'm not sure that it will beat other decks, though. Kitchen Finks is great if the current environment becomes very red heavy, and with Skullcrack coming out, I can definitely see that as a possibility. The extra life gain is very important. Also, you should be looking at ways to deal with Deathrite Shaman specifically. Garruk the Relentless is a great planeswalker that will hit your opponent's Deathrite Shaman and give you a decent Planeswalker still in play. I'm also really surprised that none of the Jund decks yet have played any equipment. Equipment post-board is not very good, but pre-board it could be a great thing to put in that Bloodbraid Elf spot, allow you to get through some extra damage, do something interesting, and then pull it out for a more exacting card in a sideboard card. The other thing that individuals who have previously played Jund are thinking about is what other decks have really gotten stronger because of this banning. I would argue that there really are two types of decks. One of those is the control. This Watto control deck is one of those types of control decks where it really has all of the counterspells possible in it. Counterspells are terrible against Bloodbraid Elf, and with Bloodbraid Elf out of the deck, this deck just got stronger. Another is the tempo control decks. This is another counterspell type strategy that has trouble dealing with Bloodbraid Elves. With counterspells getting better, this will harm combo decks, although I think there is some combo decks that can force their way through even a control strategy. The Niv Magus Elemental deck that was played by some members of Channel Fireball, I believe, at the last Pro Tour is looking really good right now. Its only really bad matchup was Jund, and with Jund weakened, this could be the right time to try Niv. I also personally really like a straightforward zoo strategy. Tribal Flames can do a lot of damage on turn 2 or turn 3 with the fetch lands and the shock lands. Both Step Lynx and Loam Lion also can do a lot of damage with the fetch lands. I think Deathrite is a wonderful addition to this particular deck as another way to get through a few points of damage, and Grim Lavamancers deal with opposing Deathrites really well, along with Lightning Bolts and Lightning Helixes. As you're out there looking for what to replace Bloodbraid with, if you've got any ideas, please let me know. I'm looking for those answers myself as I prepare for this current Modern season. Thanks. This has been Brian Rowe with Mythic MTG Tech, looking at how to replace Bloodbraid Elf.